The force is still strong with the 1980s, and today we're doing a review of a band that were massive in the 1980s. And yes, they're still going strong now. The review is for Def Leppard's brand new album, Diamond Star Halos. But can it be as good as some of those 80s albums? Keep watching to find out. Welcome back to Rockers Beer Review. Today we're going to be doing a review of the new album by Sheffield rockers Def Leppard. This is called Diamond Star Halos. You know, the first thing you think of when a new album drops from Def Leppard is, can this ultimately be Hysteria 2? You know, it's probably a little bit unfair, but when a band has released such an iconic album, although, you know, nearly 35 years ago, anything that they release subsequent to this will also always be compared with it. And although people are already saying that this album is probably the best Def Leppard album they've put out this millennium, it's still a long way off from, you know, a lot of their 80s output, including Hysteria. So, where are Def Leppard in 2022? The whole album is a little bit of a throwback, not to the 1980, but the bands that Def Leppard were like heavily influenced by. So we're talking about bands in the 70s such as glam rockers T-Rex, The Sweet and Slade. Although this isn't a tribute album as such, because Def Leppard's own sort of musical DNA really sort of bleeds through the songs. And it's mixed with a very modern sound using, you know, all the sort of studio bells and whistles that the band to some extent are very famous for and have always been sort of associated with. But they've produced an album here which is still essentially a very Def Leppard one. We have the usual sort of mix of rockers, party anthems and ballads, which you would expect. They aren't really sort of what I would call reinventing the wheel, like they tried with the 1996 album Slang. So let's go through some of those tracks then from this album. Opener is called Take What You Want, and it builds slowly into a great sort of guitar groove, which sounds great. I mean, Joe Elliott almost sounds youthful in his vocal delivery. It almost sounds a little bit too good, you know. They can perform some really great miracles in the studio these days. It's a great song, and it's got all the sort of Def Leppard trademarks. You've got the harmony vocals, yep, check. You've got the stinging sort of solos, yep, check. Pop sensibilities, check. Face it, if it was released sort of 30 years ago, we'd all be dancing to it on top of the pops. But again, this is 2022. The energy keeps going into track 2, which is called Kick, which is another sort of party rocker, I suppose. And it was the first song that they released from the album. This is more than a nod to sort of Mark Bolan's T-Rex, really. And it's another sort of catchy, great chorus. It's a pretty good song. It's a very sort of immediate song. The quality then sort of continues really, and we think we're on a bit of a roll here. So we've got a song Fire It Up. Again, another sort of big rocker sound. It sounds a little bit like it's a song that could have almost appeared on Hysteria, with Joe Elliott almost sort of rapping the sort of vocal delivery, with again huge harmony vocals and a riff that, you know, you feel that you've sort of slightly heard it before. It's rock, baby, and by this point you wonder whether they can keep it up through the 15-track album. It's a pretty long album. The answer is obviously no. With the first ballad that comes next, this is called This Guitar, which brings a sort of almost country western sort of vibe. It may be due to the introduction of a female vocalist, Alison Krauss, who duets with Joe on this song. Alison Krauss is probably famous for being the sort of vocal partner now of Robert Plant. The song itself is not really for me. It's a little bit soppy and sounds like the sort of track that Bryan Adams would have rejected. Fortunately, though, things get back on track with SOS Emergency, another, you know, sing-along, rocking, quite hard, quite sort of guitar-orientated song. Then we've got a sort of a more mystical Eastern sounding, a sort of mid-pace sort of rocker called Liquid Sky. Here I think the band's sort of channeling again the sort of 70s bands, pretty much like David Bowie, and then we sort of head into what I think is a pretty terribly titled song called You Rock Me. Me spelled M-I, with its big sort of, it's got a big upfront bass sort of riff in it. It sounds like the sort of, you know, a little bit of rock by numbers really, a little bit of a filler. Then again, we've got another ballad, and it's a very big overblown one this time, you know, with lots of piano and loads of sort of strings and orchestra sort of in here. But it's, you know, it's still a long way from songs like Love Bites and Heading for a Heartache. There's some nice guitar playing, nice Spanish sort of acoustic guitar playing, which does redeem it a little bit though. We're sort of, you know, we're now in the middle of the sort of album. We're getting into that what I would call mid-album bloat. We've got songs like With All You We Need, Open Your Eyes, Give Me a Kiss, and then another quite bland sort of ballad called Angels Can't Help You Know. Alison Krauss is then back for another country-sounding song called Lifeless. And to be honest, the title's a little bit, you know, it's quite apt really, because it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just bland a little bit. Then soon enough, we've got the penultimate song, Unbreakable. And this is brings back some of that sort of rock energy from those sort of first half of the album. It's got the catchy hooks, it's got all of the sort of the vocal melodies, and it's a real sort of hard rocker. It's a good song. It's a shame that it's shipped right near the end of the album. But actually the best song from the album is actually saved till last. The last track is called From Here to Eternity. It's not quite an epic in terms of its length, because it's only 5.5 minutes, but it's certainly epic in its sound. Starts off slow before bursting to life with some sort of big harmony vocals and a sort of real heavy groove really, culminating in some really good solos. It's a song full of drama and dynamics, and personally I would have liked to have heard more sort of songs like this, more tracks like this from the album. So 15 songs and lasting just over an hour, there's a lot to sort of, you know, listen to and sort of take in really. It's a very solid Def Leppard album, if a little bit unremarkable really. I'm sure if you're a massive fan of Def Leppard, then you're going to lap it up really, because, you know, it's certainly a step up from, you know, from a lot of their sort of albums that came out this sort of century really. But it's still a little bit too, for me, polished. I mean, this is what Def Leppard are about. They make very polished sort of albums, and sometimes it loses a little bit of its energy because of that. So, I mean, where does this album fit in their back catalogue? Well, you'll have to watch my Def Leppard ranking video, which should be releasing in the next week or so. So if you're not already a subscriber to the channel, please subscribe, and then you'll get notified as soon as that video drops. I've been working on it for quite a while. I wanted to wait until this new Def Leppard album was out so I could fit it into the ranking, and I'm sure there's going to be a few surprises within that. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and my review of the Def Leppard's new album, and until the next one, you know what you're going to do. Keep on rocking.